Socrates, it seems that every story about Greek philosophy begins with him. He taught that in order to lead others, we must first lead ourselves. And it's true. Think about it. How can you lead others if you can't lead yourself? How can you expect other people to follow you if you don't know where you're going? So it's logical to conclude that self-leadership is by far the most important skill you will ever acquire. But what exactly is self-leadership? Self-leadership is knowing who you are, what you want, and why you want it. It also entails making a decision and inspiring yourself to follow it through and have others follow it too. It's a complicated thing, as you can see. Plato, the student of Socrates, said that the first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. The importance of self-leadership has been stressed since the beginning of time, when the ancient Greek bards used to recite the story of the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Odyssey, a story of a sailor setting off on a perilous journey. Odysseus was his name, and he yearned to reach home. And it took 10 long years of fighting struggle and obstacle after obstacle. And in the end, he reached home. He reached his goal. Because his goal was virtuous and clear. So today I'm going to share with you the 3 golden principles of Greek philosophy for self-leadership. It has remained the same over thousands of years because it works. But first, I'd like to share with you a little of my story. I was growing up in Canada. I was the daughter of immigrants, Greek immigrants, to Montreal. And my parents wanted to connect with my history and my heritage. So while other classmates were getting bedtime stories like Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, my parents would read to me from the Iliad and the Odyssey, the Greek myths and Aesop's fables. Now, fast forward my life. I'm 22 years old. I've come back from London, where I studied international banking and finance, and I'm working in a big British bank. My career seems promising. I have a big office and a big paycheck. On the inside, though, I feel horrible and frustrated. Why? Because I feel that my natural talents are not matched in the bank, in this career. I'm a people's person, not a numbers person. And sometimes I tell my father about this, who was the CEO of a bank, and he would say, my dear daughter, he would tap me on the shoulder and say, dear daughter, life is very difficult. It's okay to read philosophy and psychology, but stick to your safe job and your paycheck. So what did I do? I carried on, and I felt like a hamster on a treadmill. I start to make mistakes at the bank because I'm unmotivated. And all these mistakes culminate into one big mistake, where I'm called in to do a presentation in front of the board of directors. Now, I do the presentation, but I feel terribly embarrassed. I didn't do a good job, not for my standards, not for the standards I know I can deliver. So at the end of that day, I face my biggest fears and I hand in my resignation. Now, did things go better after that? Of course not. They got a lot worse. First, I had a very big argument with my father, a dramatic Greek-style drama argument, where he said to me, "You're making a terrible mistake. You're going to live to regret it." He ousted me out of the house and said to me what amounts to an ancient motto the Spartans would say to the soldiers going off to war. Tan iepitas. In other words, come bearing your shield as a victor or dead on it. What did I do? I had no plan. I just took any savings I had and I just took off. I had a backpack and I started walking. I started backpacking through Asia Minor on my own. No plan at all. I continued trekking, joined up with other groups and ended up trekking through Europe. Eventually my money ran out. So I had to take a job. Any job would do. Low-paying jobs. I was waitressing. I was a sales girl. I saved my money and tried my own businesses, but they failed and left me without any money. This was terrible. I had to lower my head. I was ready to go back to my father. On the bus, going to buy my ticket, something very strange happened. I was sitting next to a lady on the bus, and she said to me that she had to leave her job. She was a management trainer. She was training executives in communication. And she said that she had a big problem because she had to replace herself at that job. I explained to her that I would be very happy to do that job. And we spoke, and basically she hired me on the bus. She said, "Show up tomorrow, you got the job." That's what I did. I showed up at this great management training company. I started giving classes with managers. My students said that I was really talented at what I was doing. I felt it was a great match for my talents. And what's even better is the founder of this company, he said that Aristotle and Socrates were the main inspiration for his seminars, that they were based on their teachings. So I had finally found my place in life. Now, why did I just tell you all this story? I told you this story because it's a great example of what you should never do. Let's face it, I got lucky. Leaving your safe comfort zone without a plan, with no strategy, is foolish, ineffective, and downright dangerous. It's like getting into a car without knowing how to drive, without knowing where you're going, and without a GPS. Where are you going to end up? Probably off a cliff. Now, as I promised you, I would like to make your journey smoother, to give you something like a GPS for life. And this system is inspired by the Greek philosopher Aristotle. Now, as some of you may know, Aristotle was the mentor of Alexander the Great. One of the greatest philosophers of all time had written the first ever manual on the art of influence and persuasion for leaders. And they actually still teach this method today in the finest institutions of the world, like Harvard, MIT, Stanford, and now IMI. This system is called the rhetorical triangle. There are 3 parts to it. The first is ethos. If you're a leader or a business person, a professional, in order to convince and inspire a group of people to change or to follow something, you need to have ethos. Ethos regards your credibility, your trustworthiness, how much you embody your teaching. For example, would you learn how to stop smoking from someone who's a smoker? No, it means they have no ethos. Next, in order to influence, you need pathos, the root of the word passion. Pathos means the emotional connection you have with your audience. And you acquire that through speaking to their fears and their dreams. It's something like emotional intelligence. Lastly, the leader must use logos, the root of the word logic and reason. You need a strategy. You need facts. You need realistic arguments. This is how you win over an audience. And as I was teaching this system to executives in my communication classes, something began to dawn on me. It began to dawn on me that ethos, pathos, and logos are not only useful for influencing others, there's something for influencing yourself and leading yourself in life. Something like a compass for life, a GPS. I'm going to borrow the metaphor of the charioteer that Plato spoke about. In the charioteer metaphor, you are ethos. The charioteer is the ethos. In other words, you are basing your decisions and your life on being ethical, having ethos, being truthful. And this gives you several things. First of all, it gives you a great reputation, which is priceless, both in business and in your personal life. Second, ethos will give you strength and courage to follow through no matter what. And most importantly, ethos will actually help you to be happy and fulfilled as a human being. And this is mainly because people with ethos, they follow their beliefs, they say what they think, and they follow through with action. In other words, most people are thinking one thing, saying another, and doing another. That's fragmented. You're not in your power. You're not aligned without ethos. No one likes a hypocrite or a liar or a cheater. We shun them as a society. Why would you want to be such a person? You could never be happy. And I'm not saying that to be a good citizen only. It's for egotistical purposes. It's to make you happy, you well-balanced, you an integrated human being. Ethos is its own reward. You do it for itself. Ethos is basically the first filter through which you should pass any major or minor decisions through. You ask yourself, is this decision aligned with my values, with who I want to be as a human being, with my best self? I'm not saying you have to be perfect. You have to just keep striving to be excellent. This is another motto, Ain Aristevin, which you also see in many great institutions. Ain Aristevin means ever to excel. Remember, the charioteer has two horses to manage and control, the white horse and the black horse. The black horse is your pathos. That is the second filter through which you must pass your decisions. How do you feel about the decision? What does your heart say? What are your fears? Address your fears. Manage your fears with calm. And lastly, we have logos. Is this decision logical, reasonable? Is it based on science and facts? And is it a realistic decision? Is your goal clear? This realization that Aristotle's system was not only useful for influencing and persuading others, and that it can be used for influencing and leading myself, was a breakthrough for me, and it transformed my life. In a way, you can say it was the shield that I could return home to my father with. Let's go back to when I was, remember, working in the bank? Let's use this GPS and see how it could have worked. I could have asked myself back then in the bank, Alkistis, are you being fair and truthful with yourself? Are you being fair and truthful to your father? Especially to your employers who are paying you, if your heart is not in this job? No, I wasn't being fair, and most of all to myself. Then I would pass it through the test of pathos, and I would say, Alkistis, look at your fears. What do you fear most? Let's look at it. What inspires you most, Alkistis? What do you really want? What is your heart calling? The answer was there. And lastly, I could have passed it through the test of logos. What are my real choices? Let's look at this realistically. What could be a realistic goal? All right. How could I develop a strategy for a smoother transition? Now, I'm not saying that I wouldn't have had trouble in switching careers. My life just would have been a lot smoother. And that's what we all want, right? So in conclusion, what are these Greek philosophers trying to tell us? They're saying, live with ethos, channel your pathos, and apply your logos. They give us a structured way of going through life. What's it all for? What is this whole method for? What is this system that I'm offering to you? What is it for? It's for something the Greeks call eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is something much more than happiness. It's about fulfillment and thriving. Imagine a boat going with the winds in its sail. This is how your life can be. In fact, this is the breakthrough of Greek philosophers. They claimed that all of us, not just the kings or the pharaohs, all of us each have the right to pursue our happiness. And they gave us the tools for that. And isn't that what we all really want? Thank you.